Hoping we're all good. I think we're good. We're good. We're good. No more technical difficulties. All right. I think we are. We're golden. Sorry about that, everybody. Thank you for sitting through the technical difficulties. So, Tulsi Gabbard has released the name of her new universal health care plan. She also gave us a couple of details as well. And perhaps some people are going to find out they maybe should have waited before jumping to conclusions about what her plan will entail. Thanks for tuning into this live stream segment of Mikasa Sukasa. Let's get the show on the road, baby. So, Tulsi Gabbard at a recent town hall revealed the name of her new healthcare plan. She also gave us some details about the plan, and to be quite honest, it's almost exactly what she told me it was going to be. We're going to let her talk about it first, and then we'll talk about the good, some of the potential bad, and how it could stack up to the plans that are available right now.
Now, we'll be releasing a detailed plan soon, but in short, the healthcare plan that I would look to implement as president, I see more as a single-payer plus plan. Medicare for all, unfortunately, is a term that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Under my plan, we would ensure quality healthcare for every single American automatically. And if you, Randy, if you decided that you wanted to go out, you had a few extra bucks in your pocket and you wanted to go get a private insurance plan on top of that, that's up to you. But we have the opportunity to be able to bring down the cost of health care in this country by getting big insurance and big pharma away from charging exorbitant amounts of money, benefiting their profits on the backs of sick people, and instead ensuring that every single American gets the care that they need.
Well, that's pretty straightforward. I remember a lot of people saying, well, Tulsi's plan isn't going to be single payer. Tulsi's plan can't be single payer. Tulsi is talking about something, what did they say? Similar to Pete Buttigieg. They said that she was, it might as well be Beto O'Rourke or Pete Buttigieg or Kamala Harris or Elizabeth Warren, even though no one has any idea what Elizabeth Warren's planning on doing. She just keeps saying it's possible and we're just working with the framework. I don't know what the hell that means. But that's what people were saying, right? Now, a lot of people who tune into this channel regularly, and I do got to give a shout out to y'all, because y'all said the same thing that we've basically been saying. Tulsi hasn't let us down. I can't think of one piece of legislation, one plan that Tulsi came out with where she said, this is what I intend to do, and then when she introduces the plan, it turns out to be something different. For example, the Yemen bill. Her and Ro Khanna worked on the Yemen bill, said this is what I intend to do. Stop arming Saudi Arabia, stop selling them arms, and stop cultivating this, I don't even want to call it a war in Yemen, because it's not a war, it's a genocide. But we got to stop. Now, her bill did exactly what it intended on doing, which was stop arming that war, full stop. The Senate bill, however, did not do that, right? So like Roe and Tulsi's bill said full stop in the war in Yemen. The Senate bill said, well, but if we have to stay there for Al-Qaeda, then of course we'll stay there. And we already know that Al-Qaeda or ISIS is always the excuse we use to stay in any given country. But that was never Tulsi's intention. Tulsi's bill was pure. When Tulsi said she wanted to introduce an election integrity bill, did it not achieve the goals that it said she was going to achieve when she talked about election integrity a couple of years ago? Absolutely. So when Tulsi said, I'm going to introduce a Medicare for all like bill, yeah, she probably shouldn't have said the word choice, because choice is kind of it's like I said, the word kind of triggers people. It does. Rightfully so, by the way. But it was a rhetorical mistake that I'm sure she's learned from, and that's why she decided to go with a different name entirely. No different than the OFF Act. Everybody else wants to ride the Green New Deal wave. Tulsi decided, well, she already had the OFF Act, and prior to the Green New Deal resolution being introduced, everybody was on the OFF Act train, including AOC, Ilhan Omar, and Rashida Tlaib. So this is when she said she's going to do something. Whenever she has something that she knows could possibly affect the outcome for the better for everybody's life, she seemingly puts a lot of effort into making sure that bill achieves the goal that she sets out to achieve. Not everybody can say that, but that's why Tulsi earned the benefit of the doubt amongst a lot of us. And so I gotta, if you are one of those people who are like, yeah, maybe we should give her a chance because she literally has not released her plan yet. Congratulations for, using your common sense. So, Pot Reality, thanks for the super chat. Clearly a backtrack to Sanders' plan. A backtrack back to Sanders' plan? Huh? I don't even know what that means. I'm not going to lie to you. If you're saying she's backtracking on Sanders' plan, I would probably agree because, well, Tulsi signed the bill that she thought was the best to offer at the time, which was Jaya Powell's single-payer plan. However, Bernie is no longer pushing Jaya Powell single-payer since he's introduced his own plan. Bernie's plan has a lot of holes in it, and Tulsi, after campaigning, decided, you know what? I like this plan. It's good. However, I think that I can improve it. And if anybody has reserved the right to try and improve whatever plan is in front of them, once again, it's Tulsi, the person who wrote the OFF Act, the no more presidential wars, stop arming and financing terrorism, securing America's elections. I mean, the list goes on. So, yeah, if she feels like she can introduce a better bill, I don't see why she shouldn't. I'm all for that. So I want to go ahead and talk about this name. Single Payer Plus is such a smart name. Right? I think that everyone would agree, if you've been paying attention, that for whatever reason, people feel like Tulsi, as an individual, must either back Bernie's plan 100%, which then people always tell her what? Oh, we can just vote for Bernie then. So, what if she doesn't back Bernie? Oh, then if she doesn't back Bernie's plan, then she's a traitor to the progressive movement. That's the only two options. That's utterly ridiculous. Jaya Powell has a different plan than Bernie. Is she a traitor to the progressive movement? No. Jaya Powell likes Bernie's plan, also likes her plan. Tulsi likes Bernie's plan. I'm sure she likes hers a little bit better. But changing that name, the name to choose was not going to be Medicare Choice. Anything other than Medicare for All, if you're going to use the word Medicare, it's always going to sound like the name was co-opted to make it something that progressives never intended it to be. I think we all agree with that. Whether it be Buttigieg, he was at first, he said Medicare for all who want it, and then he's like Medicare Choice. Beto O'Rourke talked about Medicare for America, which actually went up for a vote in the House. Tulsi did not co-sponsor that legislation, and she voted against it. So there was that. Kamala calls hers Medicare for All as well, I believe. And once again, we don't know what the hell Warren wants. So calling it single payer and calling it plus is the best codification, because when you say Medicare Choice, it makes it seem like you're doing an either or deal. Either I'm for Medicare for all, or I'm for opting out of Medicare for all into something private. Rather than single payer plus, which is saying very explicitly, this is a single payer healthcare plan. Everyone will be on this single payer healthcare plan. Every person will pay into this single payer healthcare plan. And if you want something in addition to this, do not think that you're not going to pay into this plan, because you're going to. But everybody by default will be on this plan. Now, That's a much better sell than the whole choice thing. Once again, so I like that. Pop Reality, thanks for the super chat. I agree, single payer leaves no wiggle room. Yeah. I will say though, it is interesting to me how no one, unless people have, there is a simple explanation for it. The reason that everybody was initially okay with the phrase Medicare for all is because most people had, and have still, no idea what the hell Medicare is in its current form. The people who actually disliked, or who do dislike Medicare and disliked Medicare for all, was because they thought that Medicare for all meant that everybody was going to have the same health care as the senior citizens who currently have Medicare for all has. And that's not a good thing necessarily, because, for example, if you have current Medicare, then you're probably going to have Medicare both A and B. Medicare A for hospitals, Medicare Part B is for clinics and physicians and things like that. And then Medicare Part, I want to say it's either C or D, is Medigap, and then C or D is also for prescriptions, because Medicare Part A or Part B does not fully cover prescriptions, so you have to get more insurance for that. So like under the current Medicare for all, or under the current Medicare system, the term Medicare sounded to people who have it right now like, oh my God, so I'm basically, it's not going to get any better for me. But that wasn't ever the case. But that's why I was kind of like weirded out whenever they started using Medicare for all, because before the bills got introduced recently, I thought it was going to be, just as somebody who's worked in the healthcare system, I was like, oh no, that's not good. It's not, we don't want that. But they are changing Medicare, at least that's what they're claiming. They're changing it fundamentally. So that's good. But like I said, back to what Tulsi was saying, we don't want to even have her deal with any of that type of stuff. Like the new one, like Tulsi's bills have always been very straightforward. And I think that's what this Securing America's Elections Act. What is it going to do? It's going to secure America's elections. All Fossil Fuels Act. What is it going to do? It's going to take us off fossil fuels. Stop Arming Terrorists Act. What are you going to do? Going to stop arming terrorists. Single Payer Plus Act. You're going to have single payer plus whatever else, the bill allows you to have. Now, let's get down to the part where she talks about everybody being covered. This part is probably the best part of the plan. Because now granted, we don't know what the private insurance is going to look like yet, but it seems like she has an understanding that everybody must be covered. Everybody must pay into that system. It's the only way it's going to work. Now, regarding how she treats unions, for example, because she said that was a major factor for her. Some union members wanting to keep their private insurance. Do you know that if her plan comes out and looks the way she's describing it, unions all of a sudden have more bargaining power? You know this, right? I'm not operating from a place where a union or the corporation could come up to me and say it's either higher wages, better health care, or something in between. For what? Because I have great health care. If we're all using single payer, my family has great health care already. And not only do I not have to worry about having great health care, but I can have great health care anywhere in the country. So there are an abundant amount of jobs available for me if I'm a specialist in what I do. And I don't have to worry about my doctor being in the network, because hopefully under Tulsi's plan, almost every facility will be in the network. Right? So now I'm operating from a bargaining position of, I don't need your health care, but this place is offering me better wages and better health care. If you're only going to offer me a couple of dollars of a wage, I can just take my talents somewhere else. Now, what this will do, what I would hope it would do, is take the strain off of a system that is already overly strained. People keep forgetting, under Bernie's bill, there are two major issues that a lot of people have not considered. And I don't think it's, intentionally. I think that people are thinking about the average person and what we need, and we do need single payer right now. But Bernie's bill has a major issue. And it's not just Bernie's bill, by the way. It's all single payer legislation that does not consider this very simple fact. Right now, 44% of doctors are reporting feeling depressed, feeling anxiety, feeling exhaustion, feeling that they're overworked. A lot have reported having suicidal thoughts because they're overexhausted. They're overexhausted and overworked in a system right now where most people can't even afford to go all the time. Why? Because they literally cannot afford health insurance, and if they do have health insurance, they don't want to pay the deductible, so they just don't go. Right? I think that everybody has probably been there. And they're feeling exhausted in a system where not as many people are going. So imagine, for the first time in history, doctors all of a sudden have to deal with. Now, it went from what? Maybe 15, 20 million, maybe 100 million Americans going regularly. Maybe. Like, that's a huge maybe. Not just casually visiting once every 6 or 7 months. You're talking about every month, every 2 months. Like, no, not that many Americans are doing it because it's like not affordable, if we're being real. So you go from not that many Americans proportionally going to what are now considered to be overworked doctors. We have a doctor shortage. We have a shortage of labor in that particular field. You go from not having that many people going and now just drop 700 million Americans into the medical system, going more frequently than they have ever gone, because now I have single payer healthcare. Why wouldn't I go? Now I'm going and I'm getting checkups once every 2 or 3 months rather than once every 2 or 3 years. I'm getting a physical once every 6 months instead of once every 2 or 3 years, or once whenever I get a new job, or whatever. So now all those people who may be contracted through, for example, I'm contracted through private TRICARE for my former employer, the military. Some people may get better insurance through their unions. So if we just counted everybody who could potentially get better insurance through their unions, through TRICARE, and we're not even talking about just regular employees, just through unions and TRICARE, that is already roughly 30 million people that can now go through a different provider, maybe have quicker access, maybe have shorter wait times, which means shorter wait times for everybody else, right? Everybody else who only has access to single payer for whatever reason, which means shorter wait times for those looking to get surgery at this particular hospital because I have private insurance through my union or through TRICARE, while I can go on to the nearby Army base or the nearby Air Force base and get surgery. So I don't have to take time away from somebody else who can only afford single payer for whatever reason. That's a great thing. And mind you, I am still paying into the single payer system. I don't have that option. Okay? It's just like I use this metaphor all the time. It's just like the MTA payroll tax in New York, people. Just like it. Everybody pays it. If you live in New York City, I don't give a damn if you're in Long Island or in the Bronx, you're paying the MTA payroll tax. Do you use the MTA? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. However, you are absolutely going to benefit from the MTA even if you don't use it. Maybe your kid goes to school, a private school in the city, so they have to take the Lear. So maybe you don't use it, but your child does. Or your child might in a couple of years. Get what I'm saying? So like, it's a public good and everybody needs to pay into it to make it work because of that. So if you have people going on private, they're paying extra a little bit for private, but they also are still paying into that single payer system to ensure that the single payer system continues to have the resources it needs to serve everyone else. So you have increased bargaining power under the plan that Tulsi is describing, but you also have better access for the people who may opt into private insurance for whatever reason, and then also the people who cannot and still have great quality single payer health care. Now, I want to address the part of her plan that she talked about in this video that is probably the biggest point of contention for everybody, right? It's well, private health insurance at all whatsoever they'll just price out the market and take all the healthy people. Yeah, the whole take all the healthy people out of the risk pool, that argument is completely dead now, because she just said there is no opting out. You're paying for it, and even if you're not using single payer, you're paying for it. But if you're not using it, you're not draining its resources. So the whole risk pool argument is now thrown out the window. But there is a legitimate argument to be made that Tulsi actually addresses in the video. You're like, okay, what if private insurance companies can lobby to increase prices of medical services to drain the system? Well, that's an argument that you can make against literally every single Medicare for all, universal health care, single payer bill that's out right now. So Tulsi says that in her bill, she is going to include mechanisms. She said in the video, she's going to include mechanisms that will give the government ability to bargain lower prices across the board for not only prescription drugs, but for healthcare services as well. So I imagine we'll look up the costs for certain services in other countries, based off of population density and things like that. I imagine that's what they'll probably do, and find a happy medium here that makes sure that doctors are fairly paid, that the government doesn't go broke, and that taxes aren't incredibly high. As long as, that's the part that I think people don't get, is that as long as there is corrupt lobbying and an inability to negotiate prices on behalf of, for the government to negotiate prices rather than the private industry negotiating prices, as long as those two things exist, then no matter how great a single payer bill is, no matter how great a Medicare for all bill is, no matter how great a universal health care bill is, does not matter, because the bills will ultimately get corrupted when there's big money spent. Tulsi also has, by the way, anti-corruption legislation coming down the pipe, which would seek to address that issue. Also, she co-sponsored and introduced, alongside a couple of other people, the Move to Amend amendment, which would remove big money from politics. So that's a three-pronged approach to ensuring that her single-payer bill works for everybody. You have the single-payer healthcare bill itself that will seek to negotiate prices on behalf of the people rather than allowing private insurance companies or private contractors to do so. Then you have her anti-corruption bill, which will stop people from going, from the government to this particular lobby or the government to this particular industry. How that game goes. Then you have her Move to Amend bill, which would take big money out of politics in general. So not only does she have a single payer plan that works for everybody, but she is actually taking even further steps to make sure that big money cannot influence or corrupt her legislation, because that's the biggest problem with things like this. Think of California, for example. I said this in my last video. California starts off with a lot of fantastic ideas. They really do. The problem is lobbying is not outlawed in California. So a great idea all of a sudden becomes a corruptible idea in which some corporation can make a lot of money off of. And that's exactly what happens. Great ideas in California start great, and then people end up homeless, making $50,000, $60,000 a year somehow, some way. And that's what we don't want to happen with anybody's bills. It seems like Tulsi is really she's very observant. She's like a damn, I don't like to say a ninja. Ninjas are like low-key government tools. She's more like a samurai. Like, she waits for her opponent and then she strikes the opponent Once she sees your weakness, she sees how you move, she sees what's going on, she blocks, and she's like, single payer plus. Booyah. Because every plan has its problems. The biggest problem that Bernie is going to have to deal with, that I hope Tulsi's bill addresses, is medical providers being able to opt out of the network. That is the biggest thing that Bernie's plan is going to have to deal with. Bernie does not allow individuals to opt out of single payer health care, Medicare for all. However, he does allow medical providers to opt out. I just told you all, most doctors, most physicians don't like the amount of customers they're getting right now. So if you're not allowing any insurance at all to cover any type of duplicates of care, what do you think a doctor who's exhausted from their current workload, who is probably just absolutely terrified at the prospect of you going from maybe 20 million, 30 million, 40 million people who use their health care regularly to 700 million people? If you're in a big city and you feel overworked, if you're the only doctor in your town and you feel overworked, imagine how you'll feel afterwards. And what Bernie's bill allows is for that private clinic to contract with either privately with individuals or privately with companies. It's just that clinic will no longer be able to claim benefits or reimbursements from Medicare for all, from the federal government. If I'm that clinic and I'm already overly exhausted, I probably don't care about that. If the insurance company is going to pay for, the insurance company that I'm privately contracted with is going to cover it, and I can work, I might make a little bit less, but my sanity is probably more important. So under Bernie's plan, you have an opt-out option that I'm not quite sure Tulsi's plan is going to allow, because that's probably the compromise, right? You can't opt out if you're going to be able to work with private health insurance. You still have to be open and available, but if you do have a private health insurance, you can prioritize based off of private contracts that you might have with a particular insurance company. You can prioritize perhaps, but you absolutely cannot opt out, because once again that becomes burdensome on the system. And that's the biggest part of Bernie's bill that kind of bothers me, is the fact that you can opt out if you're a provider, but you can't opt out if you're an individual. And we haven't really seen anybody talking about that as to how that's going to be addressed. So, so far, it looks like Tulsi's plan is going to be fire. Like I said, I had no reason to believe otherwise. But I will say this. There are a lot of people out there who owe Tulsi an apology. There are a lot of people out there who claim she wasn't going to have a single payer bill. It's a lie, because her bill is literally single payer plus, where there will not be, to my understanding from what you described, Medicaid. You won't have to dichotomize between Medicaid for all, Medigap, Medicaid, Medicare, Medigap, which are 3 different payers, and then you have private. You can opt out if you're in a network, if you can opt out of the Medicare for our network under Bernie's bill, which is 4 different payers, by the way. So for those who are trying to claim before even seeing legislation or a plan that Tulsi's plan wouldn't be single payer, you need to address why you're not upset about the fact that Bernie's plan is, by definition, by many of your definitions, not a single payer plan. And why you aren't as upset about it. Because that would be a huge issue for me. That would be a huge issue for me under Tulsi's bill. You got to have some type of stipulation on how many medical providers can opt out. So that is something that is extremely problematic, that if Tulsi manages to remedy with her legislation, people they're going to have to owe her an apology. These are the facts. So I once again got to give a shout out to those who were patient, those who waited, those who said, look, Tulsi, out of all people, has earned the benefit of the doubt. She has not put out one bad piece of legislation in the last 3 to 4 years, nor has she endorsed bad legislation in the last 3 to 4 years. Nor has she endorsed any public option legislation, which she could have easily done in the last 3 years, because there were some available. Like I just said, Medicare for America is a public option legislation. She's not endorsed that. She did not co-sponsor it. She did not vote for it. So she earned the benefit of the doubt, and yet there are people out there who took the opportunity to bandwagon. They're like, oh, this is it. We can take Tulsi out. We can take her out. We got what we needed out of her. We can take her out. It's very disingenuous. It's very disingenuous. It was not, I don't believe that these people cared as much as they pretended to care about Tulsi's medical plan. I don't think that people were splitting hairs about what's single payer, what's public option, what's private option. I don't think they did the proper research, and I do believe they didn't do it on purpose, because that you can't make a video. Think about it. How many people out there made videos saying the exact same thing? This sounds like a public option, and somebody clicked on it. Yeah, I agree, because all my favorite people agree. All those same favorite people who also have been very clear they want Bernie to win over Tulsi. Which I have no problem with them, wanting Bernie to win over Tulsi. That's a personal preference. But I do have a problem when these same people will go on Twitter, will attack anyone, even Bernie supporters who defend Tulsi, and say it's because anyone who defends Tulsi by simply saying, hey, shouldn't we just wait for her plan to come out before you attack her? Oh, you Tulsi stan, you Tulsi cultist. You're such a cultist. I'm just saying, wait. And it's funny because in the same breath, they'll say, you're a Tulsi cultist. Oh, why is that? Because Tulsi backed off of Bernie's plan, and Bernie's the only one. He's the only one who can have Medicare for all plan. Only his plan works. Only his plan is single player. But you, sir, are a Tulsi cultist, so you don't see that. That's what we're dealing with, right? It is what it is. But hey, like I said, if people are going to keep putting all their chips on this idea that Tulsi, for whatever reason, is going to all of a sudden just introduce some bad legislation, I got some bad news for you. It ain't going to happen. So let's just accept the fact Tulsi is an ally. Whether you want to believe it or not, whether it's convenient to your narrative or not, she's an ally to the progressive movement. She's been an ally for single payer. She's an ally in every sense of the word. If you would attack anybody for trying to allege that Bernie was something that he was not, whether they're saying, oh, Bernie, somebody's lying on Bernie's single payer bill. There are a lot of people who, in the moment that would happen, and it has happened, there have been people who have lied on Bernie's single payer bill, and they did entire videos attacking that person. Because it's Bernie, he's an ally, he's a progressive, and his bill was not what they were describing it to be. Now, what should you do if you're being objective and you see someone lying on Tulsi's legislation or Tulsi's plan or Tulsi's bill? What would be the natural inclination if you were objective and you knew who was your ally and who was not your ally? If it would be your natural inclination to defend your ally. But a lot of these people don't see Tulsi as an ally. And the only reason, by the way, whether it be some people from TYT or some others, the only reason they don't see her as an ally is because she's running in the same race as Bernie Sanders. That's it. That's it. if she wasn't in the same race as Bernie Sanders, any mistakes she had made in the past, they'd be making excuses for, like many people on the left, including myself, make excuses for Bernie. Whether it be his past when it comes to the military-industrial complex or some of his, recent shortcomings. If she wasn't running, they would be defending her as vehemently as they are defending Bernie. But if you're only going to attack another candidate with lies, with verifiable lies, if that's the only reason you're going to attack another candidate is because they're running in the same race your favorite candidate is running in, then, hey, y'all might need to check who y'all watching, because they're not doing what's best for the movement. They're not doing what's best for you. They're doing what's best for clicks. They're bandwagoning, and they're not here to educate. They're only here to separate. So with that being said, I thought I saw a super chat before I go. Manny, thanks for staying honest and patient. No problem, man. Usually easier to stay honest than it is to stay patient. I'm not gonna lie, but hey, doing what I can, baby. Doing what I can. Appreciate you staying. I know you're a Bernie supporter, so I appreciate you educating people out here and keeping them honest. We need more people like you. Shout out to Fiorella, ardent Bernie, she's from the Convo Couch, ardent Bernie supporter, and she has been out here correcting the record a lot too. Because once again, she understands the same thing I do. Tulsi is, out of anybody, has earned the benefit of the doubt. Period. Point blank. So, Fernando Fernandez, that's your real name? It would just be funny because it's like my name being Nicolas Niko. Best government configuration to actually pass progressive legislation. Tulsi for president, Yang for VP, Bernie Senate leader, Ro Khanna AOC House Speaker. I'm not really down for Ro Khanna being the House Speaker. And the verdict is still out on AOC. The verdict is still out on AOC. I'll see how I feel about that. But yeah, I appreciate your input there. All right, peeps. So with that being said, thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream segment of Mikasa Sukasa. And if you want, I go through a bunch of other things when it comes to single payer in my last video, in which I turned off the comment section, by the way. And by the way, in case you were curious, if you turn off the comment section and you turn the ability for people to see the likes and dislikes, all of a sudden trolls don't come to your video just to like the video or dislike the video because they don't like the title and comment what everybody else is saying and leave. If you come there, it's because you're staying to watch the video. You're going to be educated and you're going to react based off of nothing else other than the information being presented. And when you have a controversial topic like healthcare, when you have a bunch of bandwagon people, and me personally, my only objective is to educate people. And if I feel like there's a distraction from that in any particular situation, I will remedy that. So in that particular video, I turned off the comments and turn the ability to see likes and dislikes. And it's funny because that particular video where I didn't say anything different from the last video I did correcting people on this matter, all of a sudden the ratio looks way better. All of a sudden there's a bunch of likes and not as many dislikes. Isn't that curious? Probably because when people can't troll, they know people can't see it, so they're like, damn it, there's no point in me trolling here. Guess I gotta sit down and learn some information. And that's exactly what happened. All right, people, always remember more than anything else, find your balance. Peace. Hey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you like that segment of Mikasa Sukasa. Also, you can help us upgrade the studio and take this show on the road to cover the on-the-ground politics that you love by clicking on that GoFundMe link in the description and donating literally anything. Anything helps. Also, you can follow us on Rockfin, on Twitter, and on Facebook as well. And hey, more than anything else, people, always remember, find your balance. Peace.